mindset. I didn't, oh boy, oh boy. Okay. Anyway, it's all right. I'll remember what I said. um, and I didn't think, I didn't like had big plans to get married, or I didn't think about being a mother. I wasn't concerned about ever being committed to a man. I was just really focused on myself, getting an education, getting a job, and I took a lot of things for granted that maybe other women in the world can't, you know, um, coming from the States. Perhaps I was just enjoying the fruits of the women's liberation movement, so to speak. But then something happened. Yeah, I met this former member of the Unification Church, and yeah, that was interesting. But this person made me curious. I'd heard of vaguely about Reverend Moon, and I didn't, even really think. I believed in God, but I wasn't religious. I wasn't interested in religion. Couldn't couldn't be bothered with going to church, although I'd gone to church a lot as a child. But I became curious, so I did some research, and this person had some lecture booklets, and then reading going over with my curiosity and reading those lecture booklets, somehow it dawned on me, just reading about the principles of creation and the way it was conveyed, somehow it just dawned on me, oh, these people believe that the Messiah is on the earth. And they believe that this Reverend Moon fella is Messiah, And then I told my friend what I had read, and my conclusion is this true? And if this is true, how could you leave this group? Well, why aren't you still there? And then it became a terrible argument, and friendship got broken. And but I was still curious, so therefore I called the church. I looked it up, and I called the church and asked if I could attend, if they have Sunday services. I had no idea what is it like for people who follow the Messiah. Do they have church? Do they do what? I was ready for anything, and so they were surprised, needless to say. So I was invited to this church center in Miami. I lived in Florida at the time, and it was very interesting. And to be sure that the story doesn't get too long, I joined, but I joined with still, I described how I was very individualistic in my thinking. And I joined just with the mindset that, okay, I'll help out the Messiah. You want me to go on a formula course? Yeah, I'll do that. I'll go on MFT. I'll witness. I'll do whatever Reverend Moon wants me to do. And these people are lovely, and they have great goals, et cetera, et cetera. But one goal I didn't really pay attention to in my individualistic thinking was the blessing. It didn't even really dawn on me until probably several months that, oh, wow, they expect all of us to get married. Oh my God, But then I thought, okay, each blessing has a specific number. So maybe I won't be chosen, This is what I was thinking. And I'm on this formula course, and it's getting close to 1992. In 1992, as we know, there is the goal of 30,000 couples. So then I thought, oh my God, there's no way I can get out of this probably. Oh, 30,000 couples, you know. But, and to make that story short, I did get matched and I did get blessed. And this song that the Japanese sisters sing brings back all those memories of a very interesting young lady that used to be me, getting blessed. And I was pretty frightened about it. Oh, geez, I felt so sorry for Michelle. My husband, he was so eager and natural and very willing and eager to meet me. And oh. And anyway, uh, moving on, there was a big part of my understanding of all these things. There's a big significance about the 30,000 couples. This will lead into other things I'm going to say. And from the Champung Gyang, it says, the significance of this blessing was that it opened the age of the globalization of the blessing. And during that blessing, True Father declared himself on the world stage as the Messiah and declared he and Mother as the true parents of humankind. So that is very significant. And also to continue with my points and my understanding, keep in mind, prior to my blessing, there was a huge event in Korea. And that was the True Mother inaugurated Women's Federation for World Peace. It was a rally in April 1992. And I don't remember if I heard about it. I was still on MFT. And I think I was too busy freaking out about the upcoming blessing to think much about it, honestly. But this was very significant, and some of the points in her speech I'll highlight. She says she mentioned the age of women is dawning, and she also mentioned that our women's movement is not for women alone. She said, first, a movement of true love for our husbands and children must bear fruit in ideal families. The ideal families formed in this manner will come together to form ideal nations and an ideal world. For this reason, and this is significant, as we know, the Women's Federation for World Peace must someday develop into a federation of families for world peace. Now, and we know that that happened. Okay. Now back to me in my timeline. So after the blessing, it was common that, as we recall, before it was opened up to the world, it was common for church members to have a period of separation before beginning family life. So, I didn't have any problem with that, And I was, my MFT time ended shortly after the blessing, actually, and I was asked to go to work in the New Yorker Hotel in Manhattan, otherwise known as World Mission Center, So, and then during that time, okay, this would have been about August, I was blessed. Around the same time I started working there, True Mother started establishing other chapters of the Women's Federation. One was in the United States, that was in October. But at the same time, there was a memo that went out that if a woman was 30 years old, she could begin family life with her husband 40 days after the blessing. So August, and around that time, it would have been 40 days. So guess who called me all excited? Yes, he was very excited. And I was not. And I'm basically, keep it short, I told him, not ready. And also, True Mother is, I want to stay here in America and help out with the establishment of Women's Federation. So now I just want to share some of the highlights of True Mother's speech. And when she inaugurated, I don't remember, I don't know what city she was in, but there were some that stood out to me. And she said, just a few passages, true love contains the three great attributes of inheritance, participation, and this word equality. Thus, if you truly love God as he loves you, then you can possess what God possesses. You can participate in everything that God does, and you can share in God's infinite value. And then I like this next statement. Moreover, because a husband, if a husband and wife each love the other more than themselves, they are equal in value. So for the first time, personally, I began to think more deeply about the idea of value of a woman, the value of a man, what that means. That I remember that impressed me. And I also couldn't help wondering as I was listening to Mother give this speech, what would feminists think about that? What she's sharing about equality and value. True Mother, as you know, she set up chapters throughout the world and did a tour, and Women's Federation was expanding. And then I'm speaking about the fall of '92. And then something extremely significant in the Providence happened. January 10th, in Belvedere, 1993. And this is from a Church News article. And the title is True Father Proclaims the Completed Testament Age. It says, previously, religious organizations have always been centered upon the salvation of the individual. Even within our movement, you probably remember saying, my pledge, right? We said, my pledge. It was very individual. We were pledging as individuals. But we have now progressed to the salvation of the family. And then we used to say family pledge, yeah? The gateway to the completed Testament age was the blessing, which extended far beyond the Unificationist community during the 1990s. The immediate concern was to proclaim the message for the New Age. And then it talks about how it was put in a newspaper, maybe some of you remember, in 160 cities or nations, actually. Then it says about how True Parents began a tour of 33 American cities. Then what became feel significant, well, I can't say feel significant, but which is significant for women, is that True Mother spoke in Capitol Hill and the United Nations. I got to be there when she was speaking at the United Nations. Very exciting. And that served as her springboard to go throughout the world. And then, you know, maybe some members are wanting to, you know, we didn't really hear from True Mother. There was Women's Federation, we got used to it. And this, you know, I found myself wondering, why is Father sending out Mother throughout the world? What is the significance of that? And there was a very deep significance. And Father, he did a series of speeches during that time after he declared the completed testament age, and he spent the month of January doing a lot of speeches, Belvedere, talking to UTS members, and talking a lot to Japanese members in particular. I remember he asked Americans particularly American women, during one of his speeches, I want you to babysit for Japanese children so that their parents, or at least their mother, can come and listen to me. So there was this one couple, there was this one couple living in the New Yorker hotel, and so they asked me to do it. And then there was, they had a 3-year-old and a little baby and a little boy, poor little fella, he didn't speak any English. So it was really kind of a challenge, a screaming, crying child, and oh my gosh, I'm blessed, I'm supposed to be a mother, and oh my gosh, this isn't giving me any confidence at all. But somehow I got through it, and sometimes I would go knock on the door because this poor child wouldn't stop screaming. So I found this American brother that had a Japanese wife, and I can't get him to stop. Don't you know any Japanese? And I would bring him over to have a bath with their kids so he would calm down. Ooh, I just shut the computer. Did I goof it up here? Okay, sorry. So that was interesting time. It was interesting time. So anyway, Father, he did a number of speeches, and one of them I was able to attend. Otherwise I was babysitting, or working in the hotel. But this speech had really a profound effect on me. Let's see. Get with it here. Because in that speech, Father was, in these speeches, he was focusing a lot on women. And he was focusing a lot, how a woman perceived herself and how she perceived herself, her role or her attitude towards her spouse, towards men in general. And there was a lot of teasing going on of American women, and it was fun, it was deep, it was a lot, but it knocked some sense into my head. It did, I have to say. Oh yeah, can you hear that? It is hard. Yeah, hard head. Michelle knows about my hard head. Poor man. And so I started to realize about, my attitude isn't very deep. about the blessing, you know. And I uh, I asked Michelle to come to visit me, and I had hoped, because everything's so exciting, all this going on, this tour, this and that. New York was just a place to be at the time. And I was hoping to convince him to come to New York. And he came to visit me, and I was observing him, and I realized he would never survive here. He was used to being on the farm at Clearstone, and he's a country boy. I could almost see the maple syrup oozing out of his pores, and I thought, if he comes here, this is just going to kill him. And so then I realized I need to go to Canada. And then I asked, and I asked, and actually I wasn't allowed. There was so much going on that with mother's speaking tour. They wanted help. It seemed like there was always a reason, always a reason. And around the time he would have visited me, I ended up waiting 6 months before I was finally released, you know. But at least it was for a good reason, and not for a selfish reason. It wasn't the reason wasn't centered on myself. I'm like, no, I'm not ready, and I'm sure about starting a family, about being a mother, and at least I had begun to overcome that through listening to true mother, listening to true father, and reflecting. Um, but and I also wanted to share. Sometimes it's hard to go back and forth, but in the completed testament era is very significant, and in explaining that, the title of two fathers' speeches that I referred to, I forgot to mention, were called "The Resurrection and Liberation of the World's Women." Spoke about that word liberation. You know? And Mother expounded on that more when she's in the completed testament age. The speech is really amazing. If you want to look about understand how women became elevated and liberated. She speaks about how because of her and true father, men and women first themselves, they represented men and women standing in equal value. And we know that Father, he restored the position of a man, first Adam. And then, of course, also Eve needed to be restored. And this completed testament era, basically, in a nutshell, explains, or it's the beginning point of where Eve's mistake was completely restored within the position of true parents. And therefore, with the completed testament era, women could be elevated. Women didn't need to have that spiritual weight anymore, of the oppression of the fall because of Eve's mistakes. That was untangled. So that's a very significant time for women. And therefore, it was necessary for True Mother to proclaim that, to ask women to accept True Father, basically, is what she's doing. It's an exciting time. And if you could sit and hear True Mother directly and understand, exciting time to be a woman. It always is, but that time it's particular for me. So as I said, I finally came to Canada, and it was in September '93, and it was just in time to help for mother speech in Canada. It was about a month before, I believe. And for Michelle, I had understood things, but then still got caught up. He wanted to be, was hoping I'd start family right away, and I still kept putting him off. No, this is busy, and also we were kind of arguing about where we would live and just stuff like that. And it's all, here to confess, it was all centered on me, not him. And when I'm 60, and what I would do to go back 30 years and shape some sense into me. But anyway, it was again, but it was wonderful to participate in helping with receiving True Mother. And then the time went by, and finally I felt ready to begin family life with Michelle. And actually, when he came to where I was staying, I was living with the Taddens. He came in this old farm van. He was going to bring me back to Clearstone, right? And we had to still prepare and everything, so it wasn't the beginning of our 3-day ceremony or anything like that. We had to prepare, and yeah, anyway, but the van broke down. There was no cell phones back at that time, so you couldn't like call. And I was thinking, oh, this is terrible, because we're in the middle of nowhere, so that we can't like walk somewhere or whatever, and there was no payphone, no cell phones. So I said, I guess we're gonna just have to sleep here. And you go way over there, and I'll go way over here, and God forgive us, please, But anyway, I just thought that was a funny story I wanted to tell, because some of you are starting to look sleepy. So I better keep this moving. So as I said, Mother completed her tour of the completed Testament era, and then something else happened that was very significant. Remember, Mother said that the Women's Federation should develop into the Family Federation? Well, it did. And then from our good friends from Wikipedia, this is what they have to say about it. On May 1st, 1994, the 40th anniversary of the founding of the HSAWC. On this anniversary, Reverend Moon declared that the era of the Holy Spirit Association had ended, and he inaugurated a new organization, the Family Federation for World Peace and Unification, which would include our church members and members of other religious organizations working toward common goals. And then, but the very significant thing that was that the Family Federation co-sponsored blessing ceremonies. That was a time when the blessing really opened up. It wasn't just confined to church members. There was no longer some formula course required. Of course, we wanted education and about the blessing, but it opened wide. And you may recall that a lot of, I was saying about how Father spent a lot of time educating Japanese members and babysit. Well, he asked, as you know, Japanese missionaries, different stages, some for Women's Federation, but a lot for the development of Family Federation, and to conduct blessings. I think I'm looking at 2 missionaries. Don't we have a few missionaries from that time? Yuki and Kumiko, yes, and amongst others. Maybe some of you remember uh, back in 2015, our dear brother Shuji, he gave a wonderful testimony about what it was like for him when Kumiko came to Canada and being behind with his children. And it was such a lovely sermon. It really struck my heart because of the love and respect he conveyed for Kumiko. That just I never. It's one of my favorite sermons ever. Yeah. Getting to the end. Hang in there. So I pointed out a lot of things about what two parents have to say about equality, liberation, women. We mentioned about rights, you know. So back to my question. What would an International Women's Day celebration be like in 1,000 years in the future? If it were to still be celebrated. I'm just going to read my thoughts. In 1,000 years, surely God's ideal of creation in the world will be established. I believe it would be a Remembrance Day. I had International Women's Day. I believe it would be like a Remembrance Day of sorts, a day to look back at the women who walked the earth with True Mother. They would hold True Mother in such reverence and love and celebrate the peaceful world women help families to create. There would be no need to talk of rights and achieving gender equality. They would remember in gratitude that women worldwide were liberated from the fall long ago. It would be long ago if it were 1,000 years, during the completed Testament era, and a way for everyone to finally belong completely to God's true lineage was open through the marriage blessing. They would join together with their husbands and children to reflect on words by True Mother, such as these. And I'm going to read, I think, some of True Mother's most beautiful words about women in her biography. Some of you may have seen it. It's been presented, and oftentimes this time of the year being International Women's Day and Women's History Month. There is an old saying in the West, this is True Mother's words, behind every great man is a great woman. It is true. The wife is necessary for the completion and perfection of the husband. Without his wife, a husband cannot be whole. A society in which womanhood does not complete and perfect manhood cannot give rise to a peaceful and just world. Women need to fulfill the mission of the wife as well as the mission of the mother. Both are essential to create a peaceful and just world. Following the path of women saints of all religious traditions, the women of our unification movement, in response to the heart of true parents, have attended God while shedding their sweat and tears throughout our global village. Imagine even reading that in the future. True parents reveal the truth of the human fall and liberated women to fulfill the responsibility as true daughters, true wives, and true mothers. In this age, by God's providence, what was previously impossible has been made possible. Women are independent beings who represent God's feminine aspect, and thus make men whole. It is time for women to rise above the popular trend of trying to improve their status by imitating men. This only casts the relationship between men and women as one of competition in a culture that ignores their God-given and God-incarnating uniqueness. God designed men and women for a relationship in which each gives their divine and unique gifts to the other, and each receives the other's divine and unique gifts with true awareness and love. Women are not just men's assistants anymore. Then men are women's assistants. Women and men need each other's protection. The true man-woman relationship, each perfects the other and becomes one with the other in the creation of a greater whole, embodied as a child, as a family, as a nation, and as the world. And when she goes on to talk about how this will develop a great world, and ends with this developing this world. This begins at the center of the world, the home, where each woman embraces her husband as the embodiment of true love and raises their sons and daughters with the heart of a true parent. Yeah, she's truly our mother. She's truly our mother. You know, I was talking about silly me at 30 years of age. I'm 60 now, and I can't imagine life without my husband. Can't imagine not being a mother. You know, even waiting to be a grandmother one day. And I know there's challenges. In another speech, True Father spoke about women who've really suffered. You know, we see suffering in some of the women in the true family with marriage and motherhood, and some things sometimes, you know, it can be a brave, brave challenge. I was that close a number of times when I was young, really pushing Michelle away, you know? Thank God he was a patient man. Thank God I finally woke up, but at the same time, I think it's every woman, every man in our movement, every couple, every challenge we faced. You know, we believed in an ideal. Maybe for some, and we continue. And I think all are embraced to be able to say, Heavenly Parent, your parent, that kind of heart. I think true mother is working very hard. She has to look at even her own family and find a way to embrace us all, to appreciate. I think God appreciates our effort. And I believe 1,000 years from now, the women of the world will look back on us with gratitude. Thank you for listening. Join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Parent, we thank you so much for this lovely community where we can share your love and remember your love and work together to create your love in this world. It's a wonderful time to be able to pause and reflect for on everything that true parents have done for us, and to take pride in our efforts to support in creating a world. I pray that every brother and sister, everyone who has ever loved true parents, whether they would stay or not, whether they, I know you're grateful. Your parents are grateful, and your ideal will come. Thank you for never giving up on us, always guiding us, loving and giving strength to our true mother to continue to guide us as we strive with that goal, all being embraced into your family. Thank you. And I offer this prayer. Thank you, Sandra. In your family's name. Aju.
Thank you very much, Sandra-san. I'm very happy to be woman today. Standing up here. Okay, so with last song in French. In French. Do you want to stand up? As you wish.